Edutainment is a very hard nut to poke. Your goal is to teach kids history, mathematics, science, but you don't want to bore them or make them feel like they're in a classroom. Going from school to just more school is a great way to get your show canceled. There's very few shows out there that hit the balance between the two. Captain Planet was probably the most successful of the 90s, lasting for an amazing 10 seasons. It went as long as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, followed by The Magic School Bus and Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego. Carmen was a pretty big thing for its time. It originally started off as a point-and-click computer game featuring the mysterious Carmen Sandiego. She was a master criminal able to steal virtually anything, no matter how small or big, from buildings, landmarks, to paintings. And it was your job, the player, working for the Acme Detective Agency to stop her. The game series covered many topics from the original World Almanac game through Europe, Japan, and even time. The game series spawned 2 animated series and 2 very successful game series that aired on PBS. My personal favorite of the 2 was Where in Time. I really liked the weird set and how the games were done. But I'm going to focus on the original 94 animated series. When you make an edutainment show, I think it's best to not cover it up. I saw Carmen. I knew it was a teaching show, but because what it brought, the learning aspect was not important. It sounds weird, but if you could ignore it, I don't think that's the right word, but if the kid can ignore the learning aspect and watch the show for just the show, that's how you get it to work. Now that all comes down to creating characters and story for people to enjoy. Carmen is basically like Batman. It focuses on you being a detective. You're learning through mystery and history, with the setting being a mixture of past and future. That's what I think made the series fun. All the key story elements, Carmen, Acme, Vile, Carmen's villain group, her subordinates, were all taken from the games. The series featured many different puzzles and stories. Now, they didn't directly live from the games. There was no episode that was a 100% copy of the game missions, so if you were a fan of the game series, you wouldn't always know where they were going. One thing I was surprised about was that the inclusion of the player character.
I got away again, player. This should be fun.
The animated series just could have been Acme going after Carmen, but they kept the computer game element a part of the story. It's not a big piece, but the player helps out every now and again, and the player always changes through the years, although it tends to be a big plot hole a lot of times. Now, another thing you need is really good characters. Carmen is a big mystery, but you need heroes with that mystery, which comes in Ivy and Zack. And the series got lucky casting Jennifer Hale for Ivy and Scott Menville for Zack, probably better known to fans as FemShep in Mass Effect.
Hello, player. Thanks for picking me.
And Robin in Teen Titans.
Yo, Playmeister, what's up?
With Roger Bumpus playing the computer program Chief.
Pick a detective.
Ivy and Zack are the avatars of the player character, a brother and sister team, although Ivy wants to keep everything professional, so she hates when Zack calls her sis. Now, you're probably thinking, why would a detective company hire teens? While Carmen is an action show, Acme isn't meant to be a police force. In fact, Carmen loves the chase. That's her thing. Carmen is much like Moriarty. Moriarty needs Sherlock Holmes. He's the only one who gets him, just like Ivy and Zack. They aren't the only ones who work at Acme. We get to see several other members. They help with clues or actually team up with them. But they are the best at dealing with Carmen Sandiego. We don't really get to know Ivy and Zack out of work. It's always them trying to stop Carmen, but the both of them are feisty teens. Zack tends to be more of the goofball, but both of them have a strong skill set, which is why they got hired. Ivy is excellent at being calm and focused, putting all the puzzle pieces together in order to follow Carmen's trail. Zack is the one who goes into more of the detail of where they are. He knows lots of languages. He could on the fly translate Spanish, Mayan language. He just doesn't treat things all that serious. So a lot of kids who watch the show can relate to him. He's also not a bad driver with hover cars. He deals with the tech side more often. While Ivy is the fighter, she's able to deal with all the goons that Vile sends after them. You'll also notice that no one uses weapons in the series. Carmen even helps out Ivy and Zack. This made the series exciting and half the time confusing. We have a talking holographic head guy. They have the C5 corridor, which is a teleporting network that gets them around the planet in seconds, which is a big plot hole in a lot of episodes. And you have Carmen, who's almost like a friend to Ivy and Zach. It's a big mystery for you to think about all of this. I think what made the series stick in my head all these years, instead of just being edutainment, the writers expanded on the story in later seasons, answering a lot of the questions. I'm not going to spoil them, but we get a background of who Carmen is. Other things that made the show very successful was how they incorporated history. It wasn't tacked on at the end of scenes like how Mighty Max did it. You got a crime Carmen committed. She stole a statue. You get the history where she was, what she stole. Then you had to solve the puzzles and all the problems. Mix it in with super fancy CGI graphics, early 90s, throw in anything CG, everyone went ooh. It built up that interest in the series. Throw in Zach jokes, the chief doing references like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and even explaining some history with funny graphics, you got something going. The style also lended to it. It was a mixture of the 1940s with the future. There would be tons of hover vehicles made from so many different things. The show had something for everyone. If you were a fan of the games, you got to see all the different vile bad guys. I can't remember if everyone showed up, but I know most of them did. Another thing that gave the series an extra kick was its opening theme song. They came up with a really catchy tune. And the visuals were all original. It featured Ivy and Zach going around the world trying to catch Carmen. I hated that none of the missions featured in the opening were episodes in the series. I wanted to see how Carmen was going to steal the Statue of Liberty. The only thing the series didn't do was link up to the game show series. The computer games mainly brought together the other aspects of the universe. Game Show Chief would be featured in later games, while Ivy, Zach, and Carmen from the animated series would be featured in the Junior Detective game. The good of the show was that it made education fun, while Carmen is the starring character, Zach and Ivy are the main focus. There's not that many things I can complain about. It ran for 5 years, 94 to 99, but most seasons were very short. In cases, they got 6 episodes, so there were huge breaks through the years. The game shows were much more consistent in that area. There were over 400 episodes in the 6 years they were on. Ivy and Zach, I wish they had gotten more backstory to how they became Acme detectives. See them in a family setting. Like, for example, there was a Magic School Bus episode where the kids went to Miss Frizzle's house, which built a small backstory on her. They needed something like that here. But at least they did do a few episodes where Ivy and Zach teamed up with Carmen. In some episodes, she tried to convince them to join Vile. That would have been an interesting direction. The Virtual Chief didn't get any major episode. It would have been nice to see him work on a full mission. The closest you got was him being in a robotic suit one time. And the biggest issue was that the series had no conclusion. The final episode, they don't capture Carmen. There's times where she's caught, but she always gets away. The series really needed that win. Ivy and Zach earned it. At times, I also thought Zach was being treated too much like a kid. He is a kid, I'm not saying no, but he had gotten better at his skill, but Ivy would always be the reasonable one, Zach would always be the goofy one. To help also explain, the original series and the Netflix series are not the same thing. While they have the Ivy and Zach characters, they even casted Rita Moreno to play Cookie Booker for a few episodes, and like to reference the old show a few times, they're not in continuity of each other. I wish they were. I wish the game shows were also in like a history continuity in forms of Acme missions, but they rather keep things isolated. It would have been nice if they did a dimensional crossover episode featuring the 1994 cast. I still think the series holds up today. It can be corny in places, but it still teaches history and is a fun show. Before I end this, I'm going to go on a small tangent. Jennifer Hale lends her voice to Ash in the Overwatch game. Ash is a part of the Deadlock game, a criminal organization. If you look at Ash's design, she would be perfect to make a costume based off Carmen Sandiego, with Bob being dressed up like Robo-Crook, one of her Vile henchmen. Name the costume Mystery Woman. Instead of Vile, it'd be DEAD. It's an obvious thing to make and no one's thought of it yet. Blizzard's come up with costumes and dances referencing other stuff. They have Genji say Unbreakable Body on his Sentai costume that looks like a Kamen Rider outfit. They do all that with him. Is there any Carmen Sandiego fans on the team? Thanks for checking out the review. Subscribe if you want to see more. And if you remember a movie or a show that's long been forgotten, good or bad, leave it as a suggestion below. I'm always on the lookout for obscured stuff.